Hello all, this is the Owl, and today, to tide you over until Made in Abyss Part 6 sees the light of day, it's going to be a while. Let's take a look at the best weird-ass apocalypse mangas that I've read. Now, in my stupid copyright-struck video that I sadly cannot show you anymore, although I may have a plan involving BitChute and Patreon, shh, don't tell Shogakukan. I describe these as What the Fuckalypse stories, and I really like that name for what is definitely its own little subgenre within the action horror genre, with its own tropes, style, and audience. And oh boy, am I not kidding about the what the fuck aspects, as these tend to be both extremely bizarre and extremely disturbing, rising to the point of straight-up gorno at times. But let's face it, these generally aren't manga for those looking for a deep story or fleshed-out characters. You're here to see screaming meatbags kaploded into chunks by weird shit in morbidly creative ways. And this genre has that in spades. Oh, and tropes, you say? Well, yes. The biggest and most common one is either the main character or a primary side character getting infected by whatever apocalyptic creatures we're facing, but only partially transforming and thus gaining their powers, which generally turns the latter half of these mangas from horror into pure action. It's a thing. There are also tropey characters, like the inevitable rapey bastard that the party always trusts far too easily, usually to their loss, who inevitably gets some sort of ironic comeuppance, like getting cannibal apocalypsed by sex pandas. Yes, I'm going to miss that Jinmen video. No sour grapes here. So, without any further ado, here are 5 of the better examples of this genre. Enjoy! This fever dream of a manga is probably most notable for being drawn and authored by Chihiro Watanabe, who you might know better as one of the chaps who made My Hero Academia. That's odd, although yeah. Actually, maybe that's not so surprising, considering how hard MHA pushes the boundaries of what you can show in a shonen at times, almost to the point where I sometimes wonder if MHA was initially intended to be a seinen. The setup is textbook What the Fuckalypse, almost to the point of this being a parody of the genre. The main character, Keigo, his little brother Makoto, and obvious no-nonsense, no-personality love interest Ako attend an event in Japan where it so happens that a mascotocalypse begins, and all of the cute, fluffy, and yet somewhat disquieting mascots turn into sentient, nightmarish monsters. This is actually pretty smart, although a bit hard to grasp for folks who haven't spent much time in Japan. See, in Japan, everything has a cute mascot. Every town, every large business, and basically everything else you can name. And there are plenty that are, well, really weird and frequently at least mildly off-putting, like a gigantic anthropomorphic pea with a huge boner. And you know what? Why don't we do a montage of some really weird, really creepy, and really messed up Japanese mascots? Just look at this shit. Cue the montage. So having them turn into rampaging monsters is a nifty idea. Because, well, I can imagine it, and I'm sure Japanese kids can imagine it too. Seriously, these would have traumatized the hell out of me as a kid. Outside of the concept, there isn't that much to this one, but it'll probably get a video of its own at a later date, as it feels like something you FNAF maniacs would love. It's also really, really gory, and and has a bit where a pig mascot kills someone with its willy, and I'm sure that's at least someone's thing. Weirdly, while there is apparently an official French translation, there is no such thing in English right now. Check it out if you can find it. This entry was nearly Shibuya Goldfish, but I think that one deserves a video of its own to explain the sheer peyote trip insanity of that manga. So let's do a Junji Ito story. Actually, one of his better long-form stories. And that's not saying much. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Junji Ito fan out there. I mean, the guy can write short stories like nobody's business, but when he tries to write something longer, it stops being scary the second it starts going howling at the moon insane, usually around the start of Act 2. Gore, like most Ito stories, has a fantastic and really scary first act, and then it goes, to use the scientific nomenclature, completely cuckoo holy shit fucknuts bananas in Acts 2 and 3. The setup is wonderfully bizarre. Sea life is becoming land life, scuttling up onto land on little insectile legs and killing people. Oh, and they are zombies. Yeah, what the fuckalypse for sure. Things only get weirder from there, with mad scientists, secret World War II experiments, and a virus that makes you fart out of every orifice. While it's not his best work, it's definitely one of his best drawn, and some of the ridiculously cool and horrific constructs later on feel like something right out of Silent Hill or Cry of Fear. You can grab this one from Viz for a pretty decent price, and if you do, you also get access to probably Ito's best story, The Enigma of Amigara Fault, packaged along with it, which is a pretty damn sweet deal. Check it out and enjoy the fishy insanity. Also known as Magical Girl of the End, this comes to you courtesy of the unofficial master of the what the fuckalypse genre, Kentaro Sato, who you might know better from MGA's companion series, Magical Girl Sight. Yes, that Magical Girl Sight. A manga so edgy that it paints its room black, has a 3-inch fringe, and exclusively listens to Sophora Tanis's Tales from the Adverted Wombs on repeat. The setup for this one is simple and bonkers. Japan is invaded by a huge variety of absurdly powerful magical girls, which, yeah, that's a trope of its own that I'm not going into today. All of the magical girls have unique abilities that generally revolve around murdering dozens of people in the most creative, explosively gory and ridiculous ways possible. Caught in this madness is Ki Kogami, your bog-standard, impossibly good-hearted, tabula rasa pretty boy main character, his childhood friend / love interest Tsukune, who, yeah, to give credit where credit is due, Sato does actually do some very clever things with this character, including one twist that legitimately surprised me, and a handful of others who must navigate their way to survival and eventually solve the mystery of why the Earth has been invaded by killer jailbait. And oh brother, even by the standards of this genre, this story sails out over the lunatic horizon towards the end. You can grab the English version from Seven Seas Entertainment, who are pretty damn good and also do a lot of darker manhwa. And speaking of darker manhwa, you know, all respect due, but far too many of you manga fans sleep on manga from Korea, aka manhwa, aka, well, manga from Korea. And you really, really shouldn't. As, quite frankly, there are some Korean manga that blow the absolute socks off most Japanese manga in any genre you can name, but particularly isekai and horror. It's likely I'll be adding some manhwa here and there on this channel, as it tends to be very good, very accessible, has extremely high quality English translations, and best of all, the creators are usually pretty friendly towards content creators like myself, regardless, yeah, manga tends to rule no matter where it comes from. And no, I am not just saying that because Mrs. Owl is totally nutty buddies for manga from China and Korea. Hive, a Korean manga, is no exception because Hive is amazing. I actually don't want to give anything away on this one, as it's likely a story that you've never even heard of, but go and track it down as it's great and could well be the objectively best entry on this list taken purely narratively. So what's it about? Well, giant bugs, full-on apocalypse, epic battles, great art, tons of blood and gore, rock-solid characters, and best of all, despite it being pretty long, it's totally finished. Give it a chance and I promise you that you won't be disappointed, and who knows, it may also be a nice little entry point into Manhwa as a whole, and maybe some people will finally read Solo Leveling. Yeah, read Solo Leveling. Yes, it's an isekai, but it's also the best thing you'll read this year. Yeah, I've talked about this one before, and I'll talk about this one again, because Kengo Hanazawa's magnum opus is brilliant on so many levels. The art, for one, is stellar. We're talking Sui Ishida or Kintaro Miura levels of wow. The characters are also pretty damn interesting, as our main character is absolutely not your standard pretty boy good-hearted tabula rasa or your reforming bad boy. Instead, he's a hateful, insecure, jealous, self-sabotaging middle-aged misanthrope who might actually be full-on paranoid delusional. After zombies start popping up all over the world, it seems like it's going to be your standard zombie apocalypse. But you quickly realize that there's more going on here. Crazy monsters, people getting superpowers, and frankly, some of the most creepy, disturbing imagery that I've seen in a manga. And it all ends up in one of the most bonkers and frankly the most divisive endings since frigging Neon Genesis Evangelion. It does all your standard zombie movie tropes, but it also does all your what the fuckalypse tropes, and the two mixed together turn it into something pretty damn unique. You've got your evil bands of survivors, your cults, your improvised fortresses, your oh no, I'm infected, but now you have to kill me and make everyone sad, beloved character death. But it's all done in really fresh, really creative, and well, very Japanese ways. I'm not kidding. If you're curious to learn about what Japanese culture actually is like, this gives a pretty decent idea at times. And on top of this, a lot of the story is given via discussions on internet forums, which makes this one of two stories that actually captures internet culture accurately, especially the chans. Wait, do you youngsters still have chans? I don't know, I'm old. You can grab the extremely high quality English translations from Dark Horse, and please do. Because A, Dark Horse aren't dicks, and B, they tend to be about the absolute best when it comes to this kind of translation. I do plan to cover this one in depth at a later date, so I'm going to leave it here, but yeah, get this manga. You won't regret it, and even if you are sick and tired of the zombie apocalypse scenario in general, this one might actually make you enjoy it again. It certainly did for me. Now, there is one entry that is conspicuously absent from this list. It's, how do we put this? Something big. Something that you might be seeing more of in the not too distant future. I'll leave it at that. Anyway, my friends, take care. If you enjoyed this video, why not stick around? Made in Abyss Part 6 will take a while, but there's plenty more coming down the pipe, and a fair amount here for you to enjoy. If you want to help myself and Mrs. Owl out, you can do so via our Patreon. Otherwise, cheers, and I'll see you next time. This is the Owl, signing off.